Ah, okay. There we go. Hopefully that's a bit better. Greetings, greetings, hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Now you can hear me. Awesome. Greetings, everyone. Kandaria, Yamashisha. Welcome, welcome. Just doing the usual clickety-clacks. I'm doing as well as can be, Kandaria. Good morning, Post. Hope you're doing well. Discord, YouTube channel, Pewy Papewy. We're at youtube.com/c/Agros. Done. Okay, change the description on Twitch to include the Discord server. I'm glad you're enjoying that, Pandaria. Billy Bob's a very fun story. So I didn't record anything yesterday. I figured I'd give my voice an extra day to recover. Well, an extra day. I figured I'd give it a single day off. So recording's going to be a bit all over the place this week. We're not going to be doing the normal one block of stuff each day. So today we're doing a bit of the human, Billy Bob, re-T-Foss, and T-Foss. Then tomorrow, again, the human, some Billy Bob, T-Foss, a re-T-Foss, and T-Foss. Then Tuesday, human, Billy Bob, T-Foss, re-T-Foss. Wednesday. Then Thursday and Friday is next week's Nature of Predators and the Human. Good morning, Anthony. Hope you're doing well. Well, that is the plan. But by the end of this week, we should be mostly in line with what we need to do. Well, I think that's the point. Gotta have a good chuckle at some point soon. Billy Bob definitely does that. Okay. Tomorrow. Tuesday. Wednesday. Thursday, Friday. Q. Good morning, Samantha. Hope you're doing well. Morning, Shadow. Hope you're doing well. Much appreciated, Shadow. Much appreciated. Just stretching out my neck. No idea why I woke up with a stiff neck this morning. Just one of them things, I suppose. Good morning, Alpha Noob. Hope you're doing well. Close that. The human dungeon 48. Good morning, Anon. Hope you're doing well. Okay. And we're doing Billy Bob, Vent, Vent, Quattro. Alright. Reg. That is 23. Okay. Wait, I've done 50 with my planning. Because we don't have a Billy Bob for tonight. Billy Bob. $23. Be tonight's one. 24 will be tomorrow's one. Oh, should be able to reset. This color goes up 1. This color goes up 1. This color goes up 1. Oh. And this color goes up 1. Okay, let's double check that. Make sure I didn't miss anything. So today is this. Which is 15,000 words, which is great. Then tomorrow is this, which is 16,000 words, which is great. Then Tuesday is this, which is right, that's 15,000. Wednesday is these, 15,000. Thursday is 17,000, and then Friday is 16,000. Okay, that's about right. I'm glad I caught that before I did anything too severe. So we're doing Billy Bob and Billy Bob. 23, 24. Short re-T-Foss. Plus another short re-T-Foss. Plus a T-Foss. Okie dokie. Let me just double check this one. $1,653. That's perfect. Alright, so that is the battle plan for the week. Good morning, James. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for the 30 bits. Gigantify. Very much appreciated. Strange that Twitch didn't make sound about that, but I suppose it is what it is. After this week, next week we'll be back to a more block-related recording. So, TFOS on one day, read TFOS on another day, so on and so forth. Right. Well, that's good, James. That's great. And we're going to start off. We're going to head into The Human from a Dungeon, do one chapter of that, then move on. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the web series The Human from a Dungeon. If you're new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 38. Chapter 48. Chapter 48. Nick Smith, Adventurer Level 7. Human American. I woke up feeling fully rested, for the first time in quite a while. As I stretched away the remaining stiffness in my muscles, I found myself enjoying the fluffiness of the bedding against my skin. I hadn't been able to enjoy it much last night because I'd passed out right as my head hit the pillow. It had been an exhausting week of training and translating, but all that's over now. Well, the translating at least. I'm sure Nash has something evil in mind for when we're on the road. I let out a sigh when I realized I would have to be leaving this bed. This bed. Yeah, it sucks. Good morning, Hieromancer. Hope you're doing well. And I'm glad you found the channel again, too. It's been a rough little while with notifications and being buried under a mountain of similar content. I would have to be leaving this bed. The bed isn't even the best part about this inn, though. I'd been able to get a warm shower, a shave, and a haircut as well. I didn't have much of a beard to shave, of course, but the hairs under my nose and on my chin were But the hairs under my nose and on my chin had been getting annoying. The shower was amazing, and very much needed. I'd become accustomed to my stench for the most part, but every now and again I get a whiff that made my eyes water. Rustling. To my stench for the most part, but every now and again I get a whiff that made my eyes water. It could be white noise. I think it's the microphone. It's weird. Yeah, give me a second. That should be better. Is it still coming through? Because it could also be OBS that's causing a problem. That I have no way of testing. Or it could possibly be music in the background. That's just so low that you can't identify that it's music. Yeah, okay. Let's then just do this. Let's then just do this. That is quite bad. Let's then just do this. That is quite bad. Right. I have. Just do. We're getting feedback. Okay. That is very weird. Very, very weird. Because I'm not getting it through the direct feed of my microphone. So it's obviously something with OBS. So let me. I don't think it's microphone related. Because the moment I start talking, it's fine. I don't like streaming. It's like I haven't changed anything since yesterday. Okay. Noise filter and compressor off. So let's give that a listen. Why is this so far behind? Well, the hiss is from the microphone. All microphones have a hiss. It's so that you don't ever have dead silence. But it shouldn't be this loud. That's why I run a noise filters to remove the hiss. Well, the hiss is from the microphone. All microphones have a hiss. It's so that you don't ever have dead silence. Okay, that is so very weird. Because I'm not getting this on anywhere else. For the most part. But every now and again, I get a whiff. So it's not my microphone. Because if it was my microphone, I would hear it. I'm not hearing this noise. Hum. So it has to be OBS that's making the noise. Okay. Why is OBS making the noise? It's OBS, James. It has to be OBS because it's in both YouTube and on Twitch. But like I said, I can't hear it, so I have to spot. It's OBS, James. Okay. That sounds better. It has to be OBS because it's in both YouTube and on Twitch. I think that's better. But like I said, I can't hear it. Okay. put a compressor on. Here it's, I have to spot. Hello. I put a compressor on. Here it's, I have to spot. Okay. Hello. I put a compressor on. Here it's, I have to spot. Well, test. There's going to be a bit of feedback for a little while, a couple minutes. Well, the noise echoes through. But that's because of the suppression now. So if we add filters, compressor, and we add gain after all of that of 2 dB. Testing. Compressor. And we add gain after all of that of 2 dB. Testing. Nah, there's still something there. I don't know what the hell it is though. Let me remove the compressor. Okay, compressor gone. Yes. Close. Testing. I think we need a bit more filter, 3 dB. No, probably even 4 dB. Testing. I think we need a bit more filter, 3 dB. No, there's something very wrong here. 4 dB. Testing. I mean, my voice is distorted a little bit, but it's a lot better. I think we need a bit more. Because if you... let me see. Yeah, for some reason, OBS is picking up all this interference from somewhere. I have no idea where the hell it's coming from. Because it's not the microphone, because otherwise my recording software would also suffer from it. But my recording software... Every now and again, I get a whiff that made my eyes water. Well, there's not much I can do about it. I keep pushing the gain up. That's going to add extra distortion. Okay, let's go with 8 dB. Testing. Testing, that's way too loud. Testing. Testing, that should be a bit too loud. Testing. More. Testing, that's way too loud. Testing. Testing, that should be a bit too loud. Testing. More. Testing, that's... Okay. I think that works now. I hate streaming software. I hate it. Haven't changed anything. Didn't change a single thing. Since yesterday. So where this feedback is coming from, I have no idea. And then let's put some music on again. So. Okay, fiddling with settings and stuff. Which I shouldn't have to do on a day-to-day basis, but, you know, streaming. But every now and again, I get a whiff that made my eyes water. Because this is what I hear. But every now and again, I get a whiff that made my eyes water. There's no feedback or anything in there. Nowhere near as bad as what was coming through in the stream. Good morning, Lazy. Hope you're doing well. Fair enough, James. Interference on the cord isn't my problem. Because remember, anything that would affect the microphone or the microphone signal would come through in the recording software. But every now and again, But it's not coming through on the recording software, so it's something that's software related, not hardware related. No, it's not good, Lazy. That made my eyes water. Reluctantly, I left the softness of my bed and found my clothes. The Marfix Inn. Yeah, it's not great. Hotels are great for some things, but, you know. Not so much for others. And found my clothes. The Marfix Inn also had a laundry service, and I had taken full advantage of it to get my clothing and armor cleaned. On the wall near the door were 2 boxes that had conveyor belts inside of them. In one box, I found my clothes neatly folded alongside my armor, and in the other box, I found my breakfast. And in the other box, I found the breakfast I had ordered. When we first began staying at the inn, my meal order had raised eyebrows, but now the staff was used to it. They even made recommendations of things that they thought might taste good together. Normally, I don't bother with a breakfast order and just pick something up from a stall, but I get 1 free meal a day during my stay, and I wanted to use it on our last day here. The wonderful smell of the breakfast convinced me that I'd made the right choice. There were 2 sides, one a thinly... There were 2... Oh. That's rough. Made the right choice. There were 2 sides, one of thin meat strips that tasted like a mixture of canned ham and beef jerky, and a vegetable. And a vegetable that looked like a dark green celery stick, but tasted like asparagus. I've been hesitant to try it at first due to my hatred of celery. The coffee varies here. Coffee, caffeine. Are you sniffing my coffee, dog? No, my chocolate. I'd been hesitant to try it at first due to my hatred of celery, but one of the elven chefs convinced me to give it a try. Now I regret not ordering it sooner. The entree was a mixture of eggs and meat, and I didn't know which animal either were from. This made me a little hesitant to try it, but the smell helped me fight off my doubts. I picked up my breakfast as I pulled on my clothes and armor. Unsurprisingly, the food was really good. Once I'd finished Food was really good. Once I'd finished dressing myself, I moved my real meal. Once I finished dressing myself, I moved my meal to the small table in the corner of the room and dug in. My breakfast rapidly vanished, and once I was finished, I leaned back and let the well-padded chair comfort me. I let out a burp, then reached into my nearly bulging coin purse and brought out a gold coin, placing it on the table next to the meal tray, before turning my attention to putting my armor on. Once I squeezed into everything and all the straps were tight, I took one last look around. This room itself was tastefully decorated with wooden walls and engraved stone trim. They had used a light-colored wood which seemed to glow when the curtains were open. The window was able to be opened, which wasn't something I'd seen in many other places. There were also some well-done paintings depicting some exciting scenery, like a man arm-wrestling a dragon and a mage casting a fireball. Not a problem, Lazy, not a problem. The bathroom had a toilet, sink, and the aforementioned shower. Even without any additional decorations, it was the fanciest bathroom I'd personally ever seen. It was the fanciest bathroom I'd ever personally seen. The toilet was a footrest. The toilet had a footrest, and the shower had a seat, both of which made it easy to relax while taking care of business. I could see why Ren's co-workers said some people used the inn as their vacation destinations. My entire stay had felt like one. I felt a small pang of sadness when I realized how much I'm going to miss these luxuries, but comforted myself with the thought that we'll probably find another Malfax inn during our travels. With another small sigh, I turned to the door and opened it to find Nash and York waiting outside. Nash was holding his fist up as if he were about to knock. The three of us stared at each other awkwardly for a moment. "Oh good, you're up," York grinned. "Yep, he sure is," Nash nodded. "That's good. We can get on the road right away. Come on." I gave my room one final glance before I followed my brothers by adoption out of the room. Good morning, Nee. Hope you're doing well. Come on. I gave my room one final glance before I followed my brothers by adoption out of the inn. The staff bid us farewell as we left, urging us to visit again soon. We began to head to the place where Imla had a cart set up when I spotted Regent Oakmar dashing our way. I debated whether or not to start running, but he caught up to us before I could make up my mind. "Hello, boys," he said with a beaming smile. "Glad I caught you before you left." "What's that, sir?" Nash asked. "Your business with Nick is done, right? You already paid us and everything, your highness." "Oh, yes, don't worry. I have no further jobs for you," Oakmar laughed. The reason I wanted to catch you is to let you know that we would normally throw a goodbye celebration on account of Nick awakening our monarch and everything. Unfortunately, we can't due to, critical matters of state that must be addressed immediately." "That's all right, sir, I understand," I said. Good. I didn't want you to think that we were terrible hosts or anything. Anyway, the next time you visit Balasar, I'd ask. The next time you visit Balasar, I'd ask that you send a message first so that we can properly plan a thank you celebration. "We already had a feast, surely that counts, your majesty," York added. "Actually, the feast was specifically to celebrate the return of His Highness King Yssenrath," the elf shrugged. "Royalty get their own party, plus combining celebrations is tacky. No, even if it must be delayed for the moment, I'm required to insist that we do a proper Even if it must be delayed for the moment, I am required to insist that we do a proper celebration for Nick's contribution as soon as we're able." After a bit more back and forth on the merits of such celebration, we relented to Oakmar's request. Or demand disguised as a request, rather. Once we agreed, he merrily sent us on our way. People waved as we passed, which was a welcome change from the awkward stares that we got when we first arrived. They actually seemed happy when I waved back too, which made me feel good. People had been friendly like this way back. People had been friendly like this back home, and I hadn't realized how much I missed it. Before long, we found Imlaw packing up his cart. "Hi, Imlaw," I said as we approached.
"Hi, guys. You ready to hit the road?" he asked.
"Yep," Nash said as he grabbed the heavy-looking sack from the gnome and carried it into the cart.
"Very much so,"
Yoke agreed as he climbed into the cart after Nash.
"Well, I've enjoyed our stay. I'd very much like to check the mail to see if Mother sent anything. I've been keeping her updated, but have told her to send her replies to Kakena, because we didn't know for how long we would be in Balasar."
I took one last look around the city, built within the trees. Renv had said his farewells yesterday because his uncle was taking him to see the rest of his family. It ended up being a bit of a twist of fate. Instead of Renv seeing us off, we had seen him off. However, it appeared that someone else may want to see us off. Someone that was moving our way at an unnaturally fast pace. Hey guys, I pointed at the figure racing towards us. In the time it took for Nash and Yoke to turn their heads to look, the unidentifiable figure got close enough for me to figure out who it was. The unidentifiable figure got close enough for me to figure out that it was a certain female vampire. The next thing I knew, Elmira the Eternal was standing beside me, carrying a duffel bag and looking at Yoke. I questioned my sanity when I realized that she didn't look like she'd been running at all. She was breathing normally, and her hair wasn't even out of place in the slightest. The hell kind of products does she use?
"Hi, Elmira."
Yoke's smile beamed.
"Come to see us off and
chastise you."
"And to chastise you," she placed her hands on her hips. "It isn't proper for a gentleman to fail to bid a lady goodbye, Yoke, even when he's one doing the leaving."
Yoke's smile faded.
"Ah, I see you're right. I apologize. I beg your forgiveness, milady."
Yoke stood and bowed, while Nash and I gave the two of them a befuddled look.
"I forgive you on the condition that you allow me to join your party,"
Elmira smiled, showing the briefest hint of a fang. "Really? Why do you want to travel with us?" Nash asked.
"Well, the regent is now advisor to the king. An advisor having an advisor is a bit much," she chuckled. "Plus, the king already has an immortal magical advisor, a djinn by the name of, Ralph, I think it was. Yes, and Wrath retrieved him yesterday. So I am out of a job. Haven't traveled in a while, though. Haven't traveled in a while. Haven't traveled in well over a century, and can't help but wonder what sort of hijinks my favorite pupil is going to get into with this human here."
As she was explaining herself, I turned to look back the way she'd come. It had to be at least half a mile from where I'd initially spotted her, and there was a decent uphill gradient as well. She'd run that distance in less than 10 seconds without looking in the least bit phased. And to top it off, she's a magic user. She could be pretty helpful in a fight. I suggest we bring her along, Ten said. Her relationship with Yook leads me to believe that she has vested interest in helping us, and she would be a powerful ally. Quit reading my mind, I replied. I can't read your mind without you directing your thoughts at me, and I was simply inferring based on the context of your current gaze.
It would be mine honor. It would be an honor to travel with you, Lady Elmira, Yook said.
Wait a minute, Nash interrupted. What are you going to do about blood?
Elmira held up a jug and shook it. I'm bringing some with me. Despite my youthful appearance, I'm an elder vampire. I don't need to feed as much as the younger vampires do, so this is well over a year's supply. Plus, I can visit a blood keeper if I need to top up.
Are you royalty or... Are you royalty or nobility or something? I asked.
Pardon? She gave me a confused look. Oh, because of Yook. No, I'm not. Not anymore. I was a noblewoman before I was turned, but my title was revoked due to my conversion to vampirism. Immortals aren't allowed to be nobles in Aldravia.
Aldravia?
A nation to the south of Balasar and the Unified Chieftains. A nation to the south of Balasar and the Unified Chieftains, Yook interjected. Yes, Aldravia is known for its wide and multi-species elected monarchy. Yook previously learned of my noble heritage and insists upon calling me his former insists upon calling me by my former honorifics. Elmira explained. It used to annoy me, but I've long since grown used to it.
Oh, okay, good, I laughed. I didn't want to have to walk on eggshells the whole journey.
Anyway, I'm obviously fine with... Anyway, I'm obviously fine with Elmira traveling with us, Yook grinned. Are there any objections?
Nope, I said. I guess not,
Nash shrugged. It'll be good to have another guard, I suppose, Imla chimed in.
Good morning, Muskip. Hope you're doing well. There's a Q&A tag. Q&A tag on what? There are tags. Well, technically you can ask questions and I can answer them. So it makes sense. Coffee. Except after my sinus surgery. For some reason, for 3 months, I drank tea. And then went back to normal, so I drank coffee again. In fact, let me drink some coffee. Don't look at me like that. Yes, I move around. I'm alive. Alive, I tell you.
It'll be good to have another... It's unanimous. It's unanimous, then. Allow me, milady. Yoke stood and offered his hand to Elmira. She took his hand and climbed into the cart, taking the seat next to Yoke. Taking a seat next to Yoke. I climbed up after her and took my seat next to Nash. Let our hopefully uninteresting journey begin, Imla said, turning back towards the Nasses. The carts began to move, and I watched as the city that is constantly shaded by trees slowly shrank in the distance. Once we were cleared of those trees, my eyes stung trying to adjust to all the extra sunlight. We traveled for about an hour in silence before my curiosity got the better of me. So, what's Aldravia like, Elmira? I asked. I really wouldn't know what it's like these days, the vampire smiled sadly. It's been well over a century since I left, and I haven't had a reason to return, nor do I speak...
Let's go, okay. Okay, you want a bit... Okay. You want attention, yes. Lick, 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 lick. Off you go. Oh, oh. Be right back. chair has become very shy. Okay, back. Dog is free. I decided to make a short pit stop on the way back from letting the dog out.
Nor do I speak.
So we're good to go.
Nor do I seek out news of my homeland. I can tell you what it used to be like, though.
Yes, please.
All right. Eldravia had massive tactics. Meldravia had massive tracts of land dedicated to growing fruit. Trees, bushes, and vines littered the landscape. These fruits were used to make all sorts of alcohol, but wine was by far the most popular. Most noble houses either directly owned or heavily invested in wineries and the farms that supplied them. "A nation of drunks?" Nash asked. Elmira laughed. Actually, most of their wine ended up exported. Eldravia doesn't have much in the way of Eldravia doesn't have much in the way of metallic resources, so trade was important to make up the deficit. The quality of our wine made certain that it fetched a high price, so much so that it actually aided in our diplomacy, which in turn ended up being crucial for our national defense. Which in turn ended up being crucial for our national defense.
What do you mean?
If I give you an example that happened before I was born, Plymorno, one of the nations that border Eldravia, declared war as part of an expansion campaign. They won easily, but the people of Eldravia stopped making wine in protest. Once the wine stopped flowing, other neighboring nations, including the unified chiefdoms, declared war on the Plymorno to force it to give Eldravia back its independence. However, this war didn't get very far because the citizens of Plymorno revolted against their queen. She was executed along with most of their nobility, and Eldravia became independent once again.
Wow, I whistled. People really like wine, I guess. So you said Eldravia is led by an elected monarchy. How does that work?
A multi-species elected monarchy, she corrected me. Essentially, nobility is decided by influence rather than by blood or species. Whoever can wave the most gold around becomes nobility, which results in their family also becoming nobility and forming a noble house. It is from these houses that candidates for the throne are chosen, and the general populace votes on which candidate becomes king or queen. These monarchs decide upon the laws of the land and rule until death, or they are deposed.
Deposed?
Yes. If a monarch doesn't live up to the expectations, the noble houses have the right to dethrone them. They actually get together once per year to vote on whether or not to do so. It takes 4/5 majority vote to get the king or queen off their throne. Doesn't the monarch put up a fight? They do. They do.
Your readings,
They don't have their own military forces, so they have to rely on the forces of their house. Assuming their house didn't vote to dethrone them, of course. Either way, any military they could muster would be heavily outnumbered, and they would likely face execution for their efforts.
I see. So back to the noble houses. How do they become noble?
If a monarch takes note of someone's accomplishments, they elect them as a candidate for nobility. The populace, including the other nobles, then vote on whether or not this individual becomes a noble. If they do, they become the leader of a noble house comprised of their family members. If they don't, they go about their business. If they don't, they just go about their business until next time. I'm sorry to interrupt, Imla said. If we're going to have lunch today, now's the best time to do it.
All right. All right, let's take a break then, Nash replied.
Imla nodded, then pulled the cart off to the road. We all climbed off and stretched our legs, then had a quick meal of dried meats and water, except for Elmira, who didn't eat or drink. Once he finished his piece of road jerky, Nash walked up to me with an evil grin. The grin alone told me that he was...
Cheers, Lazy. Hope you sleep well, and I hope your shifts ease up sometime soon.
An evil grin. The grin alone told me what was coming, and I felt a familiar dread begin to well up within my chest. Time for training, Nick. End of story. Nope. End of chapter. Now, the caffeine query also brought chocolate. In addition to chocolate, my pressure's fine. My blood pressure's fine. It's just beats so hard they think it's a hummingbird. Okay, chocolate consumed. Much happiness to be had. And boomer juice. Oh, all the boomer juice. Fair enough. Rather be safe than sorry, Yamashisha. Oh, caffeine, caffeine. Alrighty. Yes. Blech, water. Problem is all my additives for water contain caffeine. Actually, no. I had one that I finished. That doesn't. Okie dokie. On to next story. Me read good story. Well, we're going to do 2 chapters of Billy Bib, and then a re-Tifos, or 2, and a Tifos. Yeah, I mean, you would still have the experience, so it would mess with them pretty good, I think. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read Tifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Billy Bob's Space Trucker, and is part of a series. If you are new to the series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description. And as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 23. Due to their fear of being alone and general fear of deep space, Xenos used massive cargo ships to have nice big crews with plenty of individuals to support one another. These large ships were juicy targets for pirates and raiders because capturing a single ship could yield a great haul, and they had poor protection after centuries of peace. Weapons were only for highly trained professionals and highly specialized ships designed for a single purpose when it came to the galactic regulations. The concept of an armed merchant was bizarre, and it also meant that the circular and it also meant that the Crusticans attempting to raid the human supply lines had never faced the creature that was the convoy. That is the convoy. Big Bertha grunted, waiting at the front of the line of the assembling truck convoy. The Longhorns had been just retrofitted at the Navy shipyards, now sporting 2 turrets on the top and 1 on the left and right. The front of the cargo bay now had ammo storage right next to the 2 new bunks of the front of the cargo bay now had ammo storage right next to the 2 new bunks they'd installed. Humans didn't mind sleeping a few feet from military-grade munitions. While their bellies might be exposed, that's what formations were for. Bertha had been assigned convoy lead, and as she waited for the others to get set up, she picked up a mic. Breaker, breaker, listen up. This is Mother Trucker, convoy lead. You all sorry some bitches, best keep your eyes open. We're heading on down the big road of Twin Town, and got report of Smokies. This ain't no double nickel run to the chicken coop. This is the real shit. You get hit, you keep moving. Guy next to you gets hit, you keep moving. This convoy ain't stopping for shit. Not even in your all. Not even an all-you-can-eat buffet at the local whorehouse. She finished with an FTL prox band filled with hoots and hollers. Now, sound off. Green Goat, ready to roll. Fat Freddy, set to run. Flying Snorlax, set and ready. Evil Pony, angry and prepping. Flying Pig, good to squeal. Wild Stallion, ready to ride. Who the fuck is this guy? Who the fuck? Wild Stallion, Christ. Who let the new kid play with the big boys? Heck you, I'm Wild Stallion. Bertha barked on her mic. Shout at you lot. Rookie, you don't get a name till your first run is over. So, you're Rookie. There was a grumbling on the mic for a minute. Keep the sound going. Keep the sound off going. Who's back there? Keep the sound off going. Who's back there with the Rookie? Black Rose. Howdy, boys. Crap. Really? What a lucky feck gets to stare at your ass. Queer steer bringing up the rear. Got to tell you, I'm more interested in the Rookie. There was laughter over the prox band, aside from the Rook, who was grumbled. Last and not least, Paco Taco. Gotta give Chew some diversity. I'm pretty diverse, said Black Rose. Yeah. Chew take the shocker, but Chew take the shocker but flip upside down. There was laughter at that. Let's make sure this is a short ride. I don't know. I don't mind riding the rock. I don't know. I don't mind riding the Rook's ass for a while, said Steer, to more laughter as the Rookie spoke up. You stay away from my ass, damn it. Stow it, Rookie. Time to get the convoy moving, ordered Mother Trucker. They were leaving a supply depot, loaded with munitions, food, and other assorted war supplies, heading to a frontline base on the planet of Gemini, so named because it orbited a binary star system. It made for some interesting weather on the planet, but the system was an strategic location. Since right now the war was limited to humans, Libertonians, and the Crusticans, the humans hadn't shut off the FTL gates in enemy territory. They wanted to save that little trick till they were ready to make the most of it. The convoy wouldn't be attacked while the convoy wouldn't be attacked while in FTL. but they had to drop out of the lane they were using, cross a patch of space through a dead system, and get onto another route. That was the most likely time that they'd get hit. The Longhorns were spaced out, with one row above, one below, their unprotected underbellies facing their unprotected undersides facing one another, so they could cover all the approaches with their turrets. As they got rolling down the FTL lane, the prox band was full of chatter, bullshitting about this or that to pass the time. But 8 hours into their run, they had to drop out of the lane and head through the dead system. All right, children, keep your formation while we drive through the woods, and we'll be just fine. Most of the truckers had been through military service before, but only a few of them had actually seen combat. Even so, they followed Mother Trucker, the gunners in their turrets slowly scanning the space around them. It was another 3 hours to cross the system, and it was quiet since they didn't want anyone to be distracted with banter. The system had 3 planets, a hot Jupiter and 2 barren rocks of nothing interesting, all orbiting a yellow star. They were passing by a second barren rock when the rookie burst out on the prox band. "Smokies, 9 o'clock!" The turret swiveled and began to belch fire. Humanity might be fighting amongst the stars with Xenos and traveling in spaceships, and at times moving faster than light. But a 50 cal was still the mean weapon. And when you linked into... But a 50 cal was still a mean weapon. And when you linked 2 into a turret and let loose, it made for quite the show. Especially when you had a whole convoy worth. The tracer rounds arced out as they began to fire on the approaching crab ships. They were warships and fighters, made for war, tested in battle against other Xenos. The pilots were veterans of dozens of combat flights. They'd expected to utterly destroy the merchant vessels. The Longhorn convoy lit them up. Crustacan ships exploded and swerved away from the massive hail of bullets, swarming over the Longhorns only to be brought into sights of the gunners on the other side. The truckers took hits as energy weapons slammed into their hulls, burning away pieces of hull. But instead of the explosive decompression the cams expected, instead of the explosive decompression the crabs expected, they just kept on trucking. In preparation, they vented the atmosphere, and each trucker was wearing a pressure suit. The crates were all sealed and stirred, and the gravity held, so the gunners got better view of space. But they weren't fazed by the holes in their hulls. As the gravity on the ships held and the shell casings rained into the main hold, the sound of the bright metal bouncing on the floor of the cargo hold muted in the lack of atmosphere. The gunners might have to wade through a sea of spent casings if this held up. Finally, the crabs broke running back to the far side of the rock they'd hide. Finally, the crabs broke, running back to the far side of the rock they'd hid behind. "This is Mother Trucker. We all still trucking?" She heard the chorus of various ways to say yes. "Keep frosty. We ain't out of this yet." As they kept moving, they were passing a hot Jupiter. Then the rook called out again. As they kept moving, they were passing the hot Jupiter, when the rook called out again, 2 o'clock. The gunners turned, and the firing began again. Parker broke the calm silence. "It's a shame Big Bomber can't have fun with us. He'd love this." "Who's Big Bomber?" the rook asked as the rest of the convoy all shouted out in the same prox band at the same time. "Billy Bob, Space Trucker." Billy Bob, Space Trucker. They were staring at the cargo port on the edge of the forest. The Xenos wanted to keep the cargo and freight as far away from the big, pretty cities as possible, so it was way out in the boonies. That suited the Archangels just fine. Billy Bob had met Sergeant White and Ivanovich, but since Carl had put her helmet back on, they all looked identical to him anyway. The cargo port stretched out in front of them, simply massive in scale. This was an important Xeno world, after all. They got all sorts of shipments every day. That meant there were a large number of Atlas transports scattered about, being loaded up from various large warehouses. The port is walled off, and they have a tower every so often. The port is walled. It is a fun story. The billiest of bobs, yes. The port is walled off, and they have a tower every so often, but it looks like security is pretty loose. We can kill those gate guards and blow through the gate, or knock down that patch of wall there. Not sure what's in that building behind it, but I doubt that we'll have much resistance from the Xenos side. From the Xenos inside. Then we'd face a bit more resistance around the central building, most likely. Even so, I'm confident that we could get through whatever they've got and take that Atlas that's being unloaded and get out of here. But of course, that's only after Carl and Ivan scale that tower on the southern end and destroy that comm tower before we start. Billy Bob listened to Sergeant White lay out the plan as Captain Crunch nodded. Sounds like a solid plan, Sergeant. What about just walking in there? Billy Bob asked as Emily and the Archangels looked back at him. Then he pointed at the gatehouse leading into the walled-off port. Those space poodles were incredibly easy to bullshit. How do you think I got to a super nice parking in the museum? What are you proposing? The captain asked. Simple. You just bullshit your way into the port and bullshit your way into an Atlas. Don't tell me you guys have never bullshit your way into something like that. What are you proposing? The captain asked. You just bullcrap your way into the port and bullcrap your way onto the Atlas. Don't tell me you guys have never bullcrapped your way into something like that. The Archangel stared at him. Really? How do you guys normally get into secure places you aren't supposed to go? They said at him. Right. You killed everyone. Stupid question. Do you really think that you can just walk in there? They know what you look like, Captain Crunch said. Yeah. But they don't realize that there's a special detachment of fish cops searching the woods now, do they? But they don't realize that there's a special detachment of fish cops searching the woods now, do they? There's a what? A special detachment of fish cops. You're in power suits. They look like a shit they wear. Why not? They gotta know people are searching the planet. Yeah, that'll work. Which one of you can pilot a Longhorn? Ivanovich rose up. I can pilot it, the sheep. Dude. Dude, just speak Russian. We have translators, Billy Bob said. No, I will speak English. Well, suit yourself. Just set it to hover and follow me and the others. We'll walk up to the gate, talk our way through. They stared at him. Have none of you honestly bullcrapped before? It's all about confidence and just taking. It's all about confidence and just talking through it. Don't get too deep into some lies, but don't be too generic. Talk as if you're supposed to be there, and this is perfectly normal. I'm rather surprised to say this, but maybe this would be better if I let you take one of our suits, Captain Crunch said. I don't know anything about power suits. You get in, turn them on, and start walking around. You sync the external speakers to your implant so that you can tell it to broadcast or not, and that's about all you need to know. There's very rigorous training for us, obviously, but if you're just walking around, you should be okay. Try not to pick up anything or touch anything, because you're way stronger than one. Because you're way stronger in one than you normally. Billy Bob thought it over. Well, you don't have to spare. Well, you don't have a spare. Which one would I take? The archangels turned and looked around at each other. No one volunteered. But it was really up to the captain anyway. There was a slow sigh before Captain Crunch spoke up. You can have mine. My main purpose is to lead these sad sacks anyway, which I can do from the Longhorn. But if you die in my suit and make a mess of it, I'm not going to be happy with you. Promise I'll do my best not to die in your suit. Don't do your best. Get it done. Sounds just like my mother before baseball game. Jesus. Back in high school, our team was playing our longtime rivals to be state champs. This pain in the ass Chuck Jackson has been knocking balls over the fence against me all year. Wait. As in Chuck Jackson from the Yankees. More like the Bankies, but yes, that's Chuck. At the start of the series, my mum told me if we lost, I couldn't come home. I'm not sure if she meant that night, or ever, but I didn't want to find out either way. Anyway, he came up to the plate the first time. And you know what I did? You struck him out, ventured Kel. Fuck no, I hit him in the ankle. It was a great pitch. Looked like it was just broke wrong, and he didn't get out of the way. Bam! Right into his ankle, and then his first bat. And then his... Bam! Bam! Right in the ankle, on his first at-bat. He was out of the whole series after that, and no one was the wiser since I didn't do that sort of thing normally. And I got it up to a full count before I did it. There were some grumbles, but Anyways, long story short, gave up the base and won the series in 4. He probably could have played, but he wasn't willing to risk his college scholarship over a high school game, even if it was to be state champs. So, what is the point of the story again? Captain asked. The captain asked. Just saying that when I care enough about something, I always get the job done. Well, that, and I'm a state champ. 'Cause you played dirty, Sergeant Sampson grunted. Yep, 'cause I am a winner. Sampson scoffed, but Church cut him off. Dirty pitch or not, I still expect you to not dye my damn suit. Understood, Lieutenant? Understand, Lieutenant? Yes, sir, Billy Bob muttered. They began to pull back from the tree line. Then, They began to pull back from the tree line. They began to pull back from the tree line then, so they could go back to the Longhorn and get ready. They had already cleaned up the campsite, and with his plan, the beauty was that they had already cleaned up the campsite, and with his plan, the beauty was that they could just walk up on the front gate. So all he needed to do was get Cruncher's suit. Emily's power suit was face down in the back of the cargo bay, along with Stomper. Billy Bob had made sure to play with the Space Fox for a bit before putting him back in there. He was standing next to Captain Crunch when the Archangel pointed to the crate. Why do you have a crate with paper and rainbow rocks on it? Why do you have a crate with paper and rainbow rocks on it? Billy Bob began to laugh at that, shaking his head. Those are turds. What? Stomper, he shits rainbow turds. You've got to be kidding me. How else do you think they got in here? I honestly have no idea. I've noticed that it keeps happening on this mission. I have noticed that keeps happening on this mission. You find the Voyager, you have some special Space Fox pet that shits rainbow turds, and you have a functioning MP-44. I'm not sure anything would surprise me at this point. Oh, that reminds me. I need to get the golden record. He walked over to Emily's power suit and tried to see if he could open the hatch from the outside, but then noticed the crate next to it that he hadn't put there. Opening it up, he found the record inside and smiled. sealing it back up before lifting it and carrying it down to the stowaway closer to the front. Then he stopped. Then he stopped as he saw a woman standing next to the power suit. She was blonde, with her hair pulled back very tight, in a tight bun, very athletic and toned from the looks of it. She was wearing her dress uniform for some reason, and it took him a moment to notice the name tag and rank. She was wearing her dress uniform for some reason, and it took She was wearing a dress uniform for some reason, and it took him a moment to notice the name tag and rank tabs. Name tag and rank tabs. She was wearing her dress uniform, and for some reason it took him a moment to notice her name tag and rank tabs. Captain Crunch? You're expecting a short fat man with a moustache? Kinda? Yes, I'm Captain Crunch. Her voice was very different outside the suit. You guys all wear your dress uniforms and those things? No. He waited for a moment. But none came, so he just nodded. Okay. Well, I don't think I'll fit. It's one size fits all. Did you think that the lowest bidder would make customized suits? I guess I should have known better. Billy Bob stowed the crate, and then walked to the back of the suit. And then walked to the back of the suit and looked at the opening hatch up around the shoulders. Inside he could see some padding, and in general it looked more than big enough. But as he looked at the small hatch around the shoulders, he looked back at her. How do I get in? You grab the shoulders and jump in, slide your feet in, then you should slide your right. You grab the shoulders and jump in, slide your feet in, then you should slide your right into place. You grab the shoulders and jump in, slide your feet in, then you should slide right into place. He stared at her while she remembered that he was still limping around. He's sore all over and had recently had his arm cut off. Right. It took them a few minutes, but they made a platform out of a few crates, and he climbed onto it as she held it in place. He sat on the edge of the top one and carefully lowered himself down a bit before pushing off and dropping down. Since he wasn't really used to the steep angle of the drop, he leaned back too far and cursed as he tried to grab the suit while she stopped him from falling out backwards. He was sort of stuck, halfway in, halfway out, arms up. Is this something that happens in training a lot? No, not really. No. Thanks. Don't save my pride or nothing. He wriggled, and she kept his hand back. He wriggled, and she kept his back up until he could scoot down a bit. He wriggled, and she kept his hand back. He wriggled, and she kept his back up until he could scoot down a bit, and then slide the rest of the way in. Once he was in, the padding adjusted around him, and the hatch was shut by Captain. And the hatch... Good morning, Anon. Oh, I've said hello already. Sorry, brain's doing weird shit. Concentrating on the story and then chat. Just very, very different. Good night. Sleep well. Hope you have a great one. Found him. And the hatch was shut by the captain. The screen lit up in front of him as a bunch of data spiked in his implant. Do I want to run the tutorial? God, no. Cancel. You ran the tutorial, didn't you? I figured escaping out would clear it up. It defaulted to on. God damn it. Try canceling it. It's installing some updates. How the feck would How the feck would it know to do that? I just got it out. I just got out of it. How does it need an update? We're on a hostile planet. It's not supposed to do that. Since I'm a new user, the settings were set to default apparently. Cancel it. As a new user, I do not have the admin access. Please contact sysadmin. Jesus Christ. How long is the update? It's alternating between 5 minutes and 3 days. There was a heavy sigh from outside the suit as Captain Crunch activated his secondary comms. Boys, the suit is making him run the tutorial, and he can't get out of it. Take it easy. This might be a few hours. Wait, hey, did you guys know that putting admin into the password works? There was a pause for a moment. The highest tech power suits that humanity has made, the current pinnacle of our military design and engineering process, the very things that give us the ability to fight on unprecedented levels, full of kinds of military intel and implants. Full of all kinds of military intel and implements of war. And they didn't check to see if They didn't check to see if you could use the admin to get full access. Captain behind him sighed. You said you wouldn't be surprised by anything else on this mission. I'm not. I'm really not surprised at all. It's perfectly typical. I just had to take a moment to let that sink in before my anger and disappointment could coalesce. Cancelled the update, but I still have to run through the tutorial. You might want to back up. I don't know where this thing is going to take me. Crunch backed away as he very stiffly turned around, walking as if he were doing a robot out the back of his longhorn. Once he was outside, he could see the other archangels standing around and watching him. I've never run the tutorial. I wonder what it's like. It's awful. Oh, it wants me to jump. Wait. Captain Crunch warned him before he could leap. Crunch couldn't warn him before he leapt forward, smacking into a tree, shaking the trunk as he fell to the ground on his back. Ow! You're way stronger than you're supposed to be, and you're on a low-grav planet. You need to think about these things. He wiggled around on his back like a turtle until he could roll over enough to get to his side and push himself up. You'll get less stiff as you get used to it. Yeah. I need to just figure out how to dance in this. If I could dance, then I'd just start figuring it out. Let's see what this, hello? It still has some of Captain Crunch's music on here. What's this? Workout mix? The other Archangel saw Captain get a deer in the headlights look for a minute before she started pounding on the back of the suit. Billy Bob, you stop right there. Don't you dare. This is a direct order, Lieutenant. Sorry, sir. There's some trouble with the audio equipment. Did you say to start playing the music? Emily couldn't figure it out as long... Emily couldn't figure it out as a song started on. The other Archangels began to laugh. Emily couldn't figure it out as a song started and the other Archangels began to laugh while Billy Bob started to gyrate his hips and move his arms in a strange dance. She tried to listen to the lyrics, but... She tried to listen to the lyrics to see if that gave her any clue, but she had no idea what a mock arena had to do with... But she had no idea what a mock arena had to do with anything. Captain Crunch was glaring at his soldiers as he danced, however. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob Space Trucker. Hey, Macarena. That seems to have poisoned the future as well as the past. I think that it's time for some more booba juice.
I don't know, the chicken dance is quite bad as well.
Alrighty. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's... Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of ReTFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Billy Bob's Space Trucker, and is part of a series. If you are new to this series, there is a playlist listed down below in the description, and as always, I hope that you enjoy. Chapter 24. The capital of the Galactic Government Council was a planet chosen especially for the purpose. It was what humans might call a Gaia-class world. The gravity was heavier than anyone on the council liked, but that had been part of the point when they founded the council here. They had fitted massive gravity generators across the planet within deep craters that dot the continents, making for perfectly contained pole cities. Each of the major council species had a crater dedicated to their own environment, and tailored to their tastes. The less powerful species would share various craters with similar species. The largest of these craters housed the council itself, in the Capitol building. The largest of the craters housed the council itself, in the Capitol building. It was a massive spire stretching high enough to look over the edge of the crater and at the lush green terrain beyond the and at the lush green terrain beyond. Despite having settled centuries ago, no species expanded past these craters. It was easier to control the gravity within the crater, and it was part of their statement about the planet itself. Leave most of it intact and just use portions of it. Leave most of it intact and just use portions of it tailored to the needs of each race. Of course, some joked that these visual paradises hit a bureaucratic hellhole, since there were so many different species that were members of the council. But it was tailored around the founding members. There were some species who couldn't stay awake through the council meetings, and many who weren't comfortable in the settings.
That's not good, James.
This was how the galactic government generally worked. They preached cooperation and unity, but at the same time only catered to the tastes of the most powerful species. Each of those craters had been fought for on a paperwork war, meetings after meetings, constant committees about every last little detail. The solar cycle of the planet itself was irrelevant. There were meetings and ceremonies and appointments at all times. To help combat their own time cycles, most species would hire specifically trained diplomats from species who would better endure the time changes and varied climates. There were never-ending paperwork, assigned studies, and training going on to try and keep species in the proper standing with the founding species. The Pulvians, with their love of rules and paperwork, made sure to keep it all as complicated and painful as possible. Then the Gulweldians, a species some humans might call space hamsters, were left to run many of the various offices and file paperwork. It wasn't that they were good at it. In fact, they were known for being nervous and prone to losing the files that had been submitted. Another layer had been added to make it as difficult as possible for anyone to get anything done. They were special Pulvian branches who were allowed to bypass the Gowaldian departments to make sure the council species had their paperwork all in order. One of the reasons the Gowaldians were always so nervous was because they hadn't been alone on their home planet. There had been another species that was much stronger and meaner, but less intelligent. The official story was the Crusticans had saved the Gowaldians from being killed by this other species, and in exchange the Gowaldians were ever... And in exchange the Gowaldians were ever in their debt. In reality, the other species had been brutish, but more in harmless idiot sort of way, never taking out their anger on the smaller Gowaldians. But the Crusticans had no use for them, and plenty of uses for the seemingly harmless slave race. They had been intent on achieving this goal when they'd been discovered by these species. They had been intent on achieving this goal when they'd been discovered by other species. They quickly changed their story and terrified the Gowaldians into keeping up the charade. By this point, almost none of the Gowaldians even knew the truth, but a very small group kept the true history alive, waiting for the right moment to make it known. The Gowaldian ambassador was one of those, but he knew that now was not the time. He was in a special chamber deep beneath the main council building. It was where the council founders met for security meetings. He usually wasn't invited, but today he'd been dragged along to give the appearance of unity amongst the founders. He was seated on a plush, powerful-looking chair on a platform with the other founders, overlooking a mass of ambassadors from member races. Overlooking a mass of ambassadors from member species who'd been dragged out of bed or out of meetings to be here. Crustican honor guard surrounding them. We want to make it clear we expect a unanimous vote condemning the actions of these Libertonian and human terrorists, and a declaration of war against them. That was the Crustican matriarch Allet. She was older and larger than another of the Crustican matriarch. She had been part of the force that wiped out the Gowaldians' old neighboring species all those centuries ago. He hadn't even known why they needed the honor guard to intimidate the others. She could kill everyone in this room on her own, eat it, and still be hungry. But we saw the Crustican ships advancing into human space before the attack on our colony. But we saw the Crustican ships advancing into human space before the attack on your colony. That was the Kityan ambassador, a third species of light omnivores near human space. They were new and didn't truly understand how the galactic government worked yet. The suppression devices hadn't been tailored for them yet, which was likely why she even dared speak back. Which was likely why she even dared speak back. We were moving forward because our intelligence made it clear that they were hostile. It has been explained to you in pathetic wretches before. This government is a democracy, and as a democracy, I demand a unanimous vote to show solidarity. She had reared up and stomped on the ground, shaking the chamber under her girth. There was fear in the faces of the ambassadors and Puddle of the Gowaldian ambassador. There was fear on the faces of the ambassadors, and Puddle, the Gowaldian ambassador, looked along the platform at the other species. The Pulvians and their smug superiority, the Greslins and their damn codes, the Phyllis and their stupid dancing, and of course the Crusticans. They had spoken to the greed of the other founders so long ago, stirring up hatred and jealousy towards the Libertonians who could fly, and were too tall, and graceful, and intelligent. Pottle cursed the ambassador from that age. They should have stood by the Libertonians. It would have been better to be wiped out. It would have been. It would have been better to be wiped out as they fought. It would have been better to be wiped out as they fought than be slaves in all but name for centuries. These humans were his chance to have his revenge for all the wrongdoings done against his people. He just had to bide his time. Then he realized the other founders were looking at him.
Yes, of course. This is just like the time our saviors, the Crustacans, were able to liberate us from our old predators. We need to respect their judgment and abide by their call.
Once he said that, he could feel the sweat on his brow under his fur. But the other founders nodded and added their agreement. He quickly dabbed a cloth along his forehead and gulped. Damn his nerves. He watched the Crustacan matriarch intimidate the other ambassadors for a moment. Soon she'd find a way to get his revenge. Soon he'd find a way to get his revenge on that horrible creature. All the crimes committed against his people would be paid back full. He'd be the one laughing at them. No more Pottle this and Pottle that. If only his people were good at something other than farming. They were terrible with paperwork, couldn't fight, and their engineers only made farming equipment. He paused then, as he looked out and saw all the ambassadors looking at him. Nervously, he looked to the side to see the other founders staring at him, and the matriarch scowling as she shouted, "Pottle! Pottle! Pottle!" He squealed and jumped, falling out of his chair and rolling around as he tried to get back on his feet. "Useless little..." The matriarch scowled, even as the other founders laughed at the Gulwaldians' disparity. Founders laughed at the Gulwaldian, desperately reaching up to grab the edge of his chair and pull himself back up. "No, please, Pottle, take your time," she hissed with annoyance. "Stupid little rodent."
Sorry, matriarch. I was thinking about food again. My error,"
he huffed, trying to get his breath back. "You fat little... Keep your mind on the matter at Claw. You never do anything right," she hissed. He had finally righted himself back up and sat in his chair. "Never mind, Pottle. I'll make it clear myself." The matriarch looked back out at the other ambassadors as Pottle clutched his chest, feeling his heart thudding like mad. Mince, 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 mince. Mince is, what do you call it? Americans have a very different name for it. It's, I know the name, just look. Mince meat is probably, which is called... ground beef is the American term for it. Ground beef, mince. Mince is the British term. Ground beef is the American term. Thudding like mad. Like mad. Beside condemning the humans and declaring war, I wanted a special directive naming my new most wanted enemy of the entire galactic government. She scowled out at the ambassador. She scowled out at the assembled ambassadors. There is no greater threat, no bigger enemy of all of us than the human known as Billy Bob, Space Trucker.
Space Trucker. Well, you can always use it to make some cottage pie. It's one of my favorites. Mince, peas, mash, all the good stuff. Space Trucker. I swear to George Washington Almighty, if any of you talk about my work on music ever again, I'll have you brought up in charges, Captain Crunch growled over the comm. Sorry, it was too good not to share, especially when I found out you like to move it, Billy Bob said, as the archangels chuckled, as the other archangels echoed, move it. Not a word. I've worked very hard to be taken seriously as an officer. Being born with a last name Crunch isn't exactly the easiest thing in the world, you know. So why not change it? I refuse to let society force me to change. Suit yourself, Captain, Billy Bob said as he walked forward. He'd gotten the hang of the suit now, and they were walking along one of the roads leading to the cargo port. Most of the time they moved cargo around the surface on massive mag trains, but they still had roads for private vehicles. They'd walked down onto one of those roads, while Ivanovich piloted the Longhorn. The ship was set to hover and crept along nice and slow. Emily was in the back, ready to climb into the damaged but functional Libertonian power suit should they need help. Crunch was in the cargo bay, out of sight as she spoke on the comm. They were taking a very leisurely stroll along the road, their black power suits arranged around the Longhorn in a loose rectangle. Billy Bob up on the front left. Emily, do Gresslers wave? Yes. Would a Pulvian understand? Yes. She waved. He waved at the guard standing in the gatehouse as they walked closer, keeping a calm and casual pace. When they got closer, the guard in the bright orange vest and little cap stepped out. Billy Bob couldn't help but snicker a little at the sight. Billy Bob couldn't help but snicker a little at the sight since he had his clothes cut so that the curly fur flopped out in various locations. Totally space poodles.
What is all of this?
We're here on a special assignment to search for the escaped terrorists who shot up the museum. We've been searching the wilderness for signs of them. Our government has taken this very seriously, which is why we're wearing brand new top-of-the-line suits, not the standard ones you see on regular police.
Oh, the poodle said with a slow nod.
Hey, no one called ahead of us, did they?
No, not that I know of.
Oh, that's good. I was worried. Why's that? Well, Billy Bob lowered his speaker volume and leaned in close. They've had us out in the forest for 2 whole solar cycles, just the 5 of us, and it's really creepy out there with just 5 people. All the trees and the strange sounds at night, and we have to take turns standing guard while the others sleep. So sometimes we're all alone in the dark. The Pulvian shuddered at the thought, as Billy Bob knew the idea would.
That's awful. 2 whole solar cycles?
Yeah. Think about how many sleep cycles that is. That's the problem. They take this so seriously they won't let us come back right away. You know how it is. Your boss has some issue and he gets to stay home and rest like normal, but he makes you take extra work shifts, even though none of it is your fault, right?
Yeah, that's rough, the Pulvian said with a nod.
We're hoping you would let us in and keep it quiet. We'd find a spot to stop and take a break. Maybe spend a sleep cycle here in the walls and get some actual rest. I know it isn't usual, but can you help us out? I'd really appreciate it.
Hey, yeah, I know how it goes. That's fine. Shipments have been slow since all this went down anyway.
Hey, thanks. I'll note your help. See if we can return the favor sometime.
The Pulvian wagged his tail and walked back into the guardhouse, opening the gate for them.
You know, you're not at all like the other fish cops I know. You'll normally do... You know, you're not like the other fish... You know, you're not like the other fish cops I know. You're normally so stiff and by the code.
Oh, well, normally. But once you've been out in the forests at night, all alone, it changes you.
Billy Bob watched the Pulvian shudder once more, and then went them inside. And then waved them inside. Billy Bob smiled inside his suit as they walked forward, entering the cargo port. There was admin buildings near the center, and giant warehouses around the outside, with docking bays for the massive Atlas ships in between. He wasn't sure how big it was, but he couldn't see the other side from where they were. That was excellent, Billy Bob, Crunch said, having listened in. Now what? Billy Bob hummed as he looked around, and then started walking to the left.
This way.
He could see an Atlas that had a crew standing around and loading bay. He could see an Atlas that had a crew standing around the loading bay, sitting on crates, smoking something. A clear sign that they were done unloading and were waiting on something to show up. Didn't matter what species, Billy Bob knew what to look for in cargo crews. They had to walk another 10 minutes, even at a brisk pace, to get there, and it was one of the closer bays, so Billy Bob realized this place must be really huge. Either way, he stood up straighter than normal and set into a confident stride as he approached the Xeno sitting around on the crates. He'd seen plenty of them around before, called them blickers. They had 4 arms and more reptilian appearances, sort of like a really big iguana with extra limbs. They were about as tall as a human, but much lighter, obviously. The main reason he called them knickers was their super long tongue. They could blink, so... They couldn't blink, so instead they'd lick their own eyes to moisten them.
All right, you lot, clear out here. We're coming through.
He barked out as he got close, and they jumped off their crates, looking at the approaching black power suits. Many of them nervously licked their eyeballs while they stubbed out smokes and sticks. Many of them nervously licked their eyeballs while they stubbed out the smoking sticks they'd been breathing in. And they weren't cigarettes, he realized as he got close. They literally looked like branches that had been partially set on fire. What? One asked Billy Bob tone. Fire. What? One asked as Billy Bob turned and stepped up to him, abruptly towering over him.
You heard me. Clear out. You got the notice half a cycle ago. I don't know why you're still here.
We what? The licker looked confused and licked his eyes even more than usual in nervousness.
How many times do I need to say it? Clear out. This ship is being commandeered in the name of the Galactic Council. You're interfering with Council business here.
He set his hands on his hips.
How bad do you want to go straight to space jail, huh? I hear there are plenty of interesting cellmates willing to explore interspecies physical relations.
No. I just, there hasn't been, I didn't know.
Well, we're in the way. Well, you're in the way of official business, like I said, so clear out of here.
The lickers scurried away as they guided the Longhorn up on the cargo ramp. The Atlas ship was so massive, the Longhorn fit into the center of the cargo bay, and had room for another 7 of them where they were stacked properly. And had room for another 7 of them where they stacked properly. And that was just the cargo bay. Took a lot of fuel to move them around, and they had big crews. Part of the reason human freight had been so popular was their lower costs and ability to deliver smaller loads. As they set the Longhorn down in the bay, he saw a better-dressed commander. As they set the Longhorn down in the bay, he saw a better-dressed command crew walking down the stairs at the front of the cargo bay. "What's the meaning of this?" the best-dressed licker asked as he approached.
"I should ask you that,"
Billy Bob said and pointed at the creature. He stepped back into surprise. Billy Bob said and pointed at the creature. He stepped back in surprise.
"We gave you notice half a cycle ago, and I find your crew outside smoking. They hadn't prepared. They hadn't prepped the ship or removed their personal effects. Are you intending on obstructing our operations?
What? I don't. We are. His tongue was His tongue was rubbing all over his eyeballs in anxiety.
I could have you written up right now. Do you want this short-term appropriation to turn into a total impound?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh, playing dumb, are you? We sent your comm officer a report half a cycle ago about commandeering the ship for a small jump around the planet and bringing it back before the solar cycle is over. It was time critical, and we were willing to compensate you. But turns out this is how you prep. The captain looked over to another licker who looked panicked and confused. He wriggled his eyes and made a gesture with four-fingered hands. Billy Bob's translator told him that it was a shrug.
We didn't get anything like that, he sputtered.
We have a confirmation form from Officer Jas. We have a confirmation from your Officer Jas.
One step forward. I'm Officer Jas.
Billy Bob could not believe his luck. Is your first name Hugh? Are you Hugh Jas?
They stared at him as their translator struggled to differentiate his words.
What? Don't give me that. It's a simple question. He pointed at the licker. Are you Hugh Jas? Tell me right now where I can find Hugh Jas.
What? The translator.
Obstructing government operations, are you?
No, I'm Jas, just not a Hugh Jas.
Well, you can always make meatballs. And put a little bit of cheese in the meatballs so that you've got cheesy meatballs. It's nice. Fine. Clear out of here, all of you. Your belongings will be returned when we're done with your ship. Off, off, off.
He began to wave them out of the cargo bay, stomping behind them as they scurried away and out of the ship. The Archangels were laughing over the private comm, but none of their speakers were on, thankfully. Billy Bob corralled the lickers off the ship, and as they stood around, looking confused, the captain spoke up. What's going to happen?
We're going to take your ship. We're going to take your ship for a solar cycle, and you'll get it back when we're done.
But what do we do until then?
First of all, get your lunch.
But what do we do until then?
First of all, what is your launch clearance?
We left the data slate on the bridge.
Excellent. All right now then. Billy Bob pointed to the biggest admin building at the center of the complex. You need to go find Amanda in accounting.
Amanda who?
Amanda Huggenkiss. You go in there and you demand Amanda Huggenkiss. You shout it if you need be. You do not leave until you finally find Amanda Huggenkiss. Then she'll give you a receipt. But now clear out. We're taking off.
Billy Bob walked back inside, waving to the Sergeant White, who hit the button to start closing the cargo ramp. Once it was closed and they were left alone in the massive cargo bay, Billy Bob held out his hands.
Who's good? Who's good? Touchdown, touchdown dance! Woo!
He began to dance as the Archangels laughed and applauded his performance. All right, get out of my damn suit and get this pig in the air, Crunch Wiley said.
Come on, don't be a grump. This way is no one has to die. We're out of here and free and clear. Live it up, Captain.
We're not out of here yet, Lieutenant, she growled.
All right.
Billy Bob opened the hatch at the back of the suit.
Little help here?
He tried to pull up and out of it, but he couldn't.
Little help here?
He tried to pull up and out, but...
Little help here?
He tried to pull up and out of it, but he was still injured, so was groaning and struggling, but couldn't pull himself out. Cal stepped over, reaching in and to help pull him out, much more gentle than with her power suit than he was. much more gentle with her power suit than he was. He was held in her arms for a moment as he looked up at her. "Are you my mummy?" And she snorted. And she snorted before dropping him to the deck. He got to his feet. He got his feet under him, but hit a little hard as he had to stumble forward and then slowly straighten up, managing to keep from falling flat on his face. "Cat-like reflexes. Do I not cease to amaze?" "We're all impressed with your ability to spew bullshit out of your mouth, Billy Bob," Cal said, as he had a shit-eating grin plastered on his face. Crunch had come out of the Longhorn to get back in her suit, while he headed deeper into the ship. Climbing up the small Xeno stairs two at a time, he still had to traverse several halls and corridors before making it to the bridge. He tapped into the ship's internal comm as he began to look over the systems. The engines were cold, but he wasn't sure how long it would take the lickers to realize that they had been hijacked. "Ivan, get into engineering. Get the engines warmed up. I'm going to get the other systems online. We need to kick the tires and light the fires, and get out of here, pronto." He found the command chair, shaking his head at how lazy they were about these systems. Navigation, steering, speed, communications, they were all handled by different people. One human could easily handle steering and speed, and likely navigation on their own. Hell, adding in communication wasn't that hard either. He had to drag a number of monitors over to the command chair, slaving them to his control, and sat down. Slaving them to its control as he sat down and started to type. Life support was obviously online, but he adjusted the atmosphere to be more human-friendly. Then he stopped as he thought of Emily and set it to standard. Ivan had the engine startup sequence going, and he quickly brought out the other systems online, testing nav boosters, grav generators, and the inertia dampeners one by one to make sure that they were fully functional. He kept all of them running on his Longhorn since fully shutting it down was more trouble than it was worth, since he could get unloaded and going in less than an hour. The engines were just starting to spin up when he got the call from the tower. He quickly picked up the data slate and turned the video feed off.
"This is Tower, we've got indications of engine spin-up from your platform. We don't have you scheduled for takeoff for another solar cycle."
"Oh, yes, Tower, this is..." He looked at the data slate. "Atlas 894376-221. No name? Did Xenos not name their ships? Well, shit. Did Jazz not call you up? We have had a change of plans. We've got no longer waiting on cargo. We're prepping for an immediate takeoff."
Atlas 221, with the recent trouble, you're aware of the enhanced security protocols?"
"Yeah, Tower. I have my launch code right here. Foxtrot Echo Zulu 361. Foxtrot Echo Zulu 361.
"Understood, Atlas. However, that was the launch code for tonight, not right now. We're supposed to have security sweep your ship before the new code can be given."
Oh, is that necessary? They swept us to give us this one, and that was earlier. Do you really think that some dangerous terrorists have snuck into a port and taken over a ship without any explosions or fighting?"
There was a pause as Billy Bob held his breath. "Yeah, that's pretty unlikely. They're supposed to be real savages, barbarians. I hope they fornicate in pools of blood."
That's disgusting."
"Right. Yeah, you're ready. Right.
You are...
Right. Yeah, you're okay to go, Atlas 221. No one is launching. I'll clear you for Central. I'll clear you with Central."
"Appreciate it, Tower."
He let out a breath and smiled once more as he got the ship operational. Then he brought up the internal PA.
"Someone come up here. I'm going to need you to tell me where I'm going."
It took a few minutes, but he was joined by Crunch on the bridge.
"We can't contact our cruiser until we're past orbit, otherwise they might pick it up." "Oh, sorry, I should have clarified."
I have to watch these screens and can't. I have to watch these screens. I can steer from the nav comp, but I can't actually see outside to see if someone's in my way. What? What? Can't you get Ivanich to steer? Ivanovich. What? Can't you get Ivanovich to steer? I don't know. Ask him. Ivanovich, can you steer this thing? No, it's too big. Ah, that's what she said, Billy Bob shouted over the PA. Hey-o! Fine, stay in engineering. She stepped forward on the bridge and looked out the viewports. What do you need to know? Is there anything directly in front of us that we'll hit? No, there's buildings. Holy shit, buildings we'll never escape. There was a pause as he read the screens around him. If you're glaring at me, I can't see it. Anyway, just sit down somewhere and don't crash anything. Down somewhere and don't crush anything. Finally, he activated the engines and disengaged the locks. The Atlas began to rise up out of the dock as he angled it up at a slow pace. The buildings are getting closer. Port or starboard? Port. He shifted the ship a little and angled it up further, keeping it slow. Nothing but sky. He started to pick up speed. Clouds. The sky is getting darker. He checked the readings on his nav comp. Atlas 221, this is Central. You're not following the proper course. You need to angle down to reduce speed. That's not what your wife said last night. Excuse me? All she kept shouting was harder, harder. How dare you? Eat shit, Central. I'm fecking pilot. I don't need your stupid computers to tell me what I'm doing. But hey, let your wife know that I had a great time last night with her and her sister. Let your wife know that I had a great time last night with her and your sister.
Who is this? I'll report you. I'll have you brought up at charges.
Oh, I'm shaking in my boots. Like the cops are going to give you crap about me screwing around with your family. It's legal, buddy. Well, maybe not what your mother did, but that was some nasty crap. That was some nasty stuff.
I'll kill you. I'll hunt you down. You're dead, dead.
Billy Bob cut the feed with a smile. And now this flight won't be properly recorded and tracked because you'll have to explain that call. Now, why don't we get this fecking hoggle rolling? He punched it as Crunch started to make the call to the cruiser. To make it easier to find them, he began to broadcast a new designation, Rosie. Then across the ship's PA, the music rang out. Want to tell you a story about a woman I know. When it comes to loving, she steals the show. She ain't exactly pretty, ain't exactly small. 42.9 there. 423956. You could say she's got it all. Billy Bob was banging his head as you flew. Billy Bob was banging his head as he flew, and then the chorus came on, and he yelled with the tune, "A whole lot of Rosie." And so ends another chapter in the adventures of Billy Bob, Space Trucker. This story keeps getting songs stuck in my head. I do not approve. Oh. Good evening, or morning. I forget, Wilt. Hope you're doing well. I shall be back momentarily. I give you music and chair. All right, back. All right, we're going to do 2 TFOS and then 2 re-TFOS and 1 TFOS, and that'll put us, hopefully, on schedule for the week. Two, three, 9. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest narration of the website. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest edition of Re-TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Death Chestnut. This particular story is called Expensive, but very much worth it. 5 stars would buy again. 5 stars would buy again. Written by Death Jester. To Terran Au Pair Services, TAPS, care of Customer Service Department, from Grand Ambassador Ruktir Na of the Urkin of the Urkin Union. Subject: Product of Service. Product and Service Review. To whoever is in charge of hiring and marketing, you are very misleading in your advertising. When I first looked into your services, I was looking for a caretaker, or I think the term you would use is a babysitter, since my mate and I are so terribly busy with burgeoning alliances that our 2 empires are forging in an attempt at greater galactic unity. You marketed your services as a loyal and dutiful nanny. I thought the price was a bit high, but at this point our dear offspring had already caused 50... But at this point, our dear offspring had already caused 15 other sitters to quit. Usually, after we had to offer to pay their... Usually after we had to offer to pay for their... Usually after we had to offer to pay for their hospital visits and damages. To be honest, I had hoped that your species' reputation for being tough physically would help. And also...
I also had heard your kind had a knack for being stubborn. When Janice arrived, she was a bit taller than us and would often coo over how cute our child was. I feared that she would let our child. I feared that she would let our difficult child run all over her and be no better than the others. I resigned myself to having to pay out in the future. Little did I know that the stories of human stubbornness were quite understated. Initially, Janice bore many scrapes and minor injuries from our child being petulant and mean-spirited. Of course, we apologized profusely, fully expecting her to leave. However, Janice laughed it off and told me, "It's quite okay. My cat scratched me up worse. Besides, I'm here to do a job. I wouldn't be much of an au pair if a bratty kid scared me off." Her frankness and openness was quite refreshing to my mate and I, and we wished her luck. Over the next few months, a slow and gradual change occurred. Slowly but surely, Janice eroded our child's will to damage her and act out. Ever so slowly, she gained the affection of our child, and though we did not notice it, our affection too. We asked her about this, and she laughed and told me that Google Family. We asked her about this, and she laughed and told me to Google family bonding and pack bonding. After many hours of combing through pages upon pages of research on the subjects, I realized what she was telling us. She had become to view us. She had come to view us as family, which is an odd concept to us. And come hell or high water, she was going to make us see her as family as well. Granted, we had a concept of pack and family, but not to such an extent the humans did. After approximately a year, I noticed that Janice had become more than just After approximately a year, I noticed that Janice had become more than just a background to my family. We started considering Janice when playing me. We started considering Janice when making plans, and not just if she would be able to come along, but if she would enjoy the trips and vacations we took. If places were human-friendly, if they had the proper foodstuffs, stuff like that. She was slowly becoming more and more a part of our lives, and it was pleasant. I did not understand how deeply she had bonded with us. We had gone to a diplomatic mission to a planet that was openly contested, and the situation was delicate, and honestly, and hostile, but I was best negotiator in the sector, and such my skills were required. The Grand Council had determined that if the family went together, there would be a show of strength, trust, and goodwill. They were wrong. Of course, Janice went along with us. Initially, negotiations went well. But one day, let us just say the situation did not go well. I do not think anyone knows who started it. However, the situation was clear. We needed to leave. Through circumstances out of our control, the transport we were on to leave the planet was damaged and crashed. Through circumstances out of our control, the transport we were on to leave the planet was damaged and we crashed. My mate and I were rescued quickly, but Janice, our oldest offspring and our youngest, we had another offspring. We had another during Janice's stay with us, were lost in hostile territory. My mate and I were saddened deeply, not just in the loss of our offspring, but in the loss of such a valuable member of what we had come to view as our family. But in the loss of such a valuable member of what we had come to view as a family. We mourned Janice almost as much as we did our own flesh and blood. We grieved and returned home. A month later, we received a message from the fleet's forces still embroiled in the planet we left. During a routine patrol in the enemy territory, they had come across 3 survivors. They recovered our family. Janice will not talk about what happened, shrugging it off as taking care of her family. Medical scans showed that she had suffered multiple broken bones, lost 18 pounds, and was severely malnourished and dehydrated. She sported a few scars. To this day, she sheepishly hides them. Our offspring were a little tired and mildly dehydrated. The account of our oldest of the situation has been transcribed and published. My people believe that this account is an early attempt at comic book fiction which our people are starting to pick up on for your people. The tale, knowing that it is true, brings me to tears. Janice's bravery, sacrifice, willingness to die to protect my offspring, who are not even related on a genetic or species level, is both awe-inspiring and touchingly beautiful. Initially, I questioned if Janice would be worth the cost to hire her services. After these scant years of development, we would send her back to you, richer and with an interesting story to tell. We've kept her employed now long enough, over a decade. Both of our offspring are leaving the house. Our oldest has been gone for years. I thought I'd only be getting a babysitter. I did not know that I would be getting a babysitter, a confidant, a fanatically loyal bodyguard, a mentor to my children, a friend and a supporter to my mate. She would die for my family. She would die for my family. I lost my place. She would die for my family. Her presence and urging has led my oldest offspring to be a fine and upstanding citizen of our empire. She made a problem child into a paragon of both human and human and Urkan peoples. The service your employee has provided has enriched my life, my position, and my family. Thank you for your services. You are criminally underselling your product. Rating 5 out of 5. Would buy again. End of story. The Retifosses for the next little while will be little ones. Kind of ones we've skipped over. But they still need to be retold. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Retifos, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Because It's Funny, written by Gladius Germanicus. You can't be serious, the tall, slender man screamed up at the silver metallic saucer, hovering over his garden. I think I've done this one. Yes, I have done this one. We'll do this one then. Okay. 714. 714. Okay, it's two-part. Cool. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest narration of the weather. Yep, indeed, they do deserve to be retold. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Human Trading, written by Hitchpotamus. The humans were lying to us. It was the only explanation. Year after year, the humans sent their recruits to the Galactic Union Training Center, and every year, it became clear that they had an advanced level of training already. Yet, again and again, the humans denied providing such training. They claimed they only provided an academic education, but what we observed went beyond that. Situational, tactical analysis, hunting and stealth preparation, squad tactics, it wasn't instincts. We have ways of measuring that. It was learned behavior. All of that is why I find myself at a human school. I came to observe their education firsthand, to see if the humans were trying to sneak something into their classroom. Let me just double check this. Okay, so I haven't done this recently. Q. See if the humans were trying to sneak something into their classroom. To see if the humans were trying to sneak something into their classrooms. That would explain this. During the morning session, I had found nothing. The humans were teaching academic subjects, like they said. Now, the time allotted for the midday meal was nearly over. Always prompt, I returned to the classroom and found the teacher I was assigned to, sitting behind a desk in an otherwise empty room. Gornak, you're early. Gornak, you're really early, she said, looking up with a startled expression. Only a few of your minutes, I said. Surely that isn't that odd. Doesn't the meal period end at 12:30? Well, yes, but then there's half an hour for recess, so the kids won't be back in the classroom until 1. Recess? No, of course. So recess isn't in the classroom. My briefing material had been oddly silent about what this recess thing was, but I didn't want to reveal my ignorance. It seemed a unique human concept, but whenever we had asked, the humans had laughed it off, like it was wholly unimportant. She sensed my confusion. They didn't explain recess, did they? Typical bigwigs, ignoring anything not immediately task-related. Recess is a period, usually after lunch, where we kind of just let the kids unwind, have fun, play outside, and do whatever they want to do. I was alarmed. You just leave your children unsupervised for 30 minutes in the middle of the day? She laughed. No. We keep an eye on them, making sure they don't wander off or aren't being inappropriate towards each other. We found that it's tough for kids to maintain focus for a full day, and having this break in the middle helps with concentration. Plus, they get to have fun and play games on their own. Would you mind if I observed the students during the recess? I asked. Of course not. You just walk out the back door and they'll be in the play area. You just walk out the back door and they'll be in the play area. I hadn't even noticed that the building had a rear ingress, much less looked to see what lay beyond it. Much less looked to see what lay behind it. But I was able to find my way. But I was able to find my way there. I was not prepared for what I saw. The first thing I noticed was a chaotic metal structure, with various tubes connecting to one another. The human children were grabbing the tubes and climbing all over it. No wonder they came to the training center with advanced abilities in treetop reconnaissance. Here was the training center. I saw other children practicing advanced acceleration and deceleration G-force acclimation, including bailout techniques. I saw others doing high-speed hunting predation simulation. After observation, it became clear that one was designed the hunter. That one was designated the hunter. The children called that status being it. The others were designated prey. When the hunter caught the prey and touched him or her, that child became a new hunter. I observed a similar training activity, only rather than focusing on physical pursuit. This allowed the prey students to set a period of time in which to camouflage themselves before a predator child began to track them. There were squad games, where liberating a key item from the enemy's sphere of influence was the goal. Another, which was more of a live fire exercise, with a large red rubber ball simulating a thrown explosion. There was a spinning device to train in dizziness and resistance, and so much more. I had found it. I had found the humans' training facility. No wonder they were so secretive about this recess. I would be filing my report in the morning and requesting reprimands for the humans for hiding their training techniques within their children's alleged break. Part 2. Report on human training submitted by Special Envoy from the Galactic Union, Gornak. As you are aware, we have long sought the secret to humans' advanced training of their youth. Ladies and gentlemen, and others of the Council, I have found it. The humans have taught their children training measures as a form of recreation. We never found it in their official reports because these games are handed down almost exclusively via oral tradition, and where they are not, they are considered such trivial activities by humans that materials on them are never produced. At first, I believed the humans were intentionally hiding this activity from me. But once I discovered it and questioned them about it, they were almost too happy to provide me with information about these activities. What's odd about it is that humans themselves seem completely oblivious to the training value of these activities, have conducted little formal study of the matter, and have few, if any, formal compendia of knowledge concerning them. However, every human I talked to about these games would gush excitedly about them, and how they gained pleasure from them in their youth. While the humans may be ignorant of their extent to which their so-called recreational activities are, in fact, survival and military school trainings due to the bizarre cultural blind spot, such ignorance does not excuse their lack of candor with the Council, nor their subjecting their younglings to such harsh activities. I leave the appropriate sanctions to the Council. Ambassador Frank Price turned over the report and sighed. Really, the aliens wanted to make an issue about elementary school playtime. Well, he needed to be ready. Barney, get me Dr. Martin Scarn. I need to talk to the good doctor. Again. Dr. Scarn was the leading expert in comparative terrabiology. Dr. Scarn was the leading... Again. Dr. Scarn was the leading expert on comparative terrabiology and xenobiology. If anyone could help them figure this out, it was him. He's on line 1, Ambassador. Thanks, Bonnie. Martin, we've got another one. The Gornak report? Yeah. I had a feeling you'd be calling me about that one. So, what do you know? Here's the first thing you have to understand. Earth is an incredibly energy-rich environment. Many creatures, including humans, often run caloric surplus. Okay. Are you saying that that's not the case elsewhere? Heavens no. Most life exists counting every calorie it needs to survive. Okay. So what does this have to do with the situation? When you are counting calories to survive, overactivity is a threat to your existence. Downtime is spent lowering the metabolic rate. Play is a luxury you don't have. Well, most sentient beings have found ways to generate energy and food to make those original struggles obsolete. The biological imperative to preserve energy remains. As such, they did not develop the type of play impulse that we did. What do you mean by play impulse, Doc? Well, in an energy-rich environment, at some point avoiding being eaten becomes a greater survival need than calorie preservation. Animals who used their caloric surplus to train themselves had a better chance of not being killed and therefore of surviving than those that did not. And, well, biology tends to find a way to encourage behaviors. So we developed boredom. Wait, what? Boredom? It's a survival tactic. It encourages us to participate in activities that train our minds and bodies for survival purposes. Wait, are you saying that this guy is right? That kids' games are a form of survival training? Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we didn't design them that way, but that's what makes them fun. The simulation of danger and the need to win create an endorphin rush. But it's just how we wired. But it's just how we're wired. It's so baked into the way we think that the idea that Xenos might see it different isn't something that bigwigs ever thought of. So, what do I do now? Honestly, apologize and offer to share our information with the Galactic Union. Just because play doesn't come natural to them doesn't mean they can't learn it. Besides, haven't you always wanted to see a Koglan? Haven't you always wanted to see a Kogaloon? Besides, haven't you always wanted to see a Koglan play soccer? Ambassador Bryce smiled. He could work with this. End of story. Pew pew. Okay. That is done. Just need to check something on the other screen. Well, processes run. Ooh. All right. Let me just quickly do some quick So the next story came with a pronunciation guide. I'm just checking. To see if there's any specific. Well, he gave me a pronunciation guide for all of his stories. I'm just checking to see. If any of those pronunciation guides are relevant here. I don't think it's relevant. No, okay. So I don't think the
Pronunciation guide is relevant. I can be pronouncing it any way I want, I think. What is it? It's 2765. The only thing. Greetings, ladies and metal-gents, and welcome to this latest narration in the web series Dope. Greetings, ladies and metal-gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Only Thing More Terrifying Than a Human Is Its Pet, written by General Leah, SAOS. Yeah, I tend to not do that. And 99% of the time they don't give me a pronunciation guide. Oh, South African accent. Oh, dear. Technically, my accent's South African. But, Tales from Outer Space. I'd like to be having Tales from Outer Space would be nice, my brew. I think that's as close as it's going to get. Oi, you want some Tales from Outer Space? Most of my voices go towards the English side rather than South African. Unless what was it? Vickers van der Merwe. There you go. I'd like to be having Tales from upstairs space. SAOS. I can imagine. But my accent's a very smorgasbord accent. And, yeah. Yeah, that's true. I mean, my accent's very, a very British side of an South African accent. Traka. I mean, I roll my R's more than you would in English. Tales from Outer Space. I like the Tales from Outer Space. Okay, my brew? Is that okay? Are we okay with the Tales from Outer Space? Good morning, ASDF. Hope you're doing well. SAOS. Perg and the ship's security squad ran down the corridor as fast as their appendages would take them. The ship's logistics specialist, Oxidize, had just returned from shore leave, unescorted. Perg was nauseous with terror. It had been his turn on duty rotation to escort the human during shore leave. Things went well the first few hours, until Oxidize had managed to evade him in a food market. Perg had stopped to purchase and eat a snack. One of the things that made humans difficult to escort is that they were able to eat while walking or engaging in other physical activities. When this was combined with the human suicidal curiosity, it was a recipe for epic disaster. When Perg was going to face punishment from Well, I mean, it's a Johannesburg accent mixed with a Cockney accent from my dad and a Scottish accent from my mom. Plus a little bit of American. So, yeah, a worldly accent, we'll call it. For epic disaster. When Perg was going to face punishment from the ship's captain, he was going to request that he would be allowed to put a restraining harness on the human during future shore leave. Normally, speaking during punishment was a gross violation of protocol, but any given situation involved the human. But any situation involving the human, even in a tertiary manner,
even in a tertiary manner, seemed to create exceptions to the rules. Perg had heard of one space station that allowed humans to carry weapons, because it had been determined that the human ability to weaponize anything, including eating utensils and floors, made weapons restrictions for humans completely pointless. Perg and the security squad rounded the corner and saw the human about to enter his quadrants. Perg and the security squad rounded the corner and saw the human about to enter his quarters. Oxidize! Halt! Remain still! Do not move! The human rolled his eyes as it turned toward Perg. Rusty, Perg, why is that so difficult? Rusty, Perg, why is it so difficult? Is there a single translator on this ship that can get my name right? Perg looked at Oxidize. Rusty over and noticed that there was a suspicious moving bulge in the abdomen area of Rusty's coat. The ship's sensors had detected that Rusty brought an unauthorized life form aboard. Perg's level of terror increased from a nausea to the risk of losing consciousness. The human had obviously been attacked by a parasite, which was no doubt feasting on Rusty's internal organs. Normally, this would be a ridiculous assumption, but humans came from a Class 13 death world and could naturally produce restricted super-performance enhancement hormones at will. Perg initially had dismissed Yeah, I got that a lot, Vaka, growing up. Perg initially had dismissed such rumors as stories to entertain offspring, until he had seen Rusty loading supplies on a frozen planet. He had started by wearing an inadequate amount of cold weather clothing in the below freezing temperatures. Rather than bring emergency medical supplies, Rusty had merely brought insulated beverage dispensers with hot beverages. As the day continued of loading the supplies, Rusty had built up enough of the performance hormones in his body to the point where he had stripped down to only a thin layer of regular clothing, not even cold weather gear. Perg, who was assigned to monitor the human that day, had inquired repeatedly about Rusty's safety with a very real threat of hypothermia. Rusty's reply shocked Perg, making Perg believe that he was having a psychotic. Rusty's reply shocked Perg, making Perg think that he was having a psychotic or hallucinatory with a very real threat of hypothermia. Rusty's reply shocked Perg, making Perg believe that he was having a psychotic or hallucinatory episode. Perg, it's okay. Perg, it's okay. I just don't want to overheat. Sweating in weather like this is not a good idea. Sweating in weather like this is not a good idea. I promise, if I get cold, I'll put my coat back on. Besides, I'll be fine as long as I have plenty of this. Rusty had patted the beverage dispenser. Perg sniffed the cup that Rusty was drinking from. Perg went from amazed to shock. Rusty had mixed two poisonous beverages, hot caffeine and alcohol, and had been imbibing the noxious liquid all day. Between the hormones and beverage, Perg was certain that Rusty could... Between the hormones and beverage, Perg was certain that Rusty would collapse and probably perish at any given moment. But Rusty just continued to work. He seemed aware of his impending demise, because he always played loud music in a uniquely human genre that seemed to praise combat and violent death. The name of the genre was quite telling: hard rock / heavy metal. Purg spent the rest of the day watching Rusty work, holding up his coat, and awed that this human crewmate had bonded so strongly with the ship that he would sacrifice his life to ensure everyone had supplies. When the work was finally completed, Rusty took the coat from Peg, but rather than wear it, he casually draped it over one shoulder. Purg had notified the medical specialist to expect Rusty, who would be suffering from hypothermia, poisoning, and trauma-induced delusions. Rusty did visit the medical specialist briefly, requesting small bandages for flesh wounds that he had cured. Requesting small bandages for flesh wounds he had acquired through the day, but had not noticed. Purg and the medical specialist expected Rusty. Purg and the medical specialist expected Rusty to require several days of recovery. Instead, Rusty simply ate a larger than normal meal, which included a frozen lactose dessert. He complained about the cold outside the whole time he was eating the dessert, and went to sleep early. The next morning, he did arrive 30 minutes late for his work shift. He apologized for sleeping excessively and explained that he'd also needed a large morning meal to replenish his energy for the day. He then proceeded to work as normal. The medical specialist checked in on Rusty, inquiring about his general condition and the wounds he had suffered. Rusty just laughed. "I forgot about that, Doc. Shows what good night's sleep and a hot meal will do. I'm right as rain now. I forgot about that, Doc. Shows what a good night's sleep and a hot meal will do. I'm right as rain now." As usual, the human statements made no sense, as he didn't express any distress. The medical specialist went on its way. But back to the current crisis.
Rusty, we are here to aid you. Ship sensors detected that a life form was present when you returned. Remain calm and we will contain it.
Rusty rolled his eyes. He began unzipping his coat. "It's okay, it's just a kitten." The ship's security crew had learned the phrase "just a," when used by a human, could mean zero possibility of danger, or a situation of extreme danger. The security squad immediately readied defensive weapons. Rusty extracted a smallish creature from his coat. It began making noises and struggling. Rusty petted it and spoke reassuringly. The kitten continued to struggle, finally clawing up Rusty's arm and sitting on his shoulder. Purg spoke.
"I need to scan the creature as per life form encounter safety regulations."
Rusty knelt down so Purg could scan it. Purg asked,
"Do you know which world this natural..."
Purg asked,
"Do you know which world is the natural habitat of this creature?"
Rusty nodded. "Yeah, it's from Earth, my world." This caused consternation amongst the security squad. Earth was a Class 13 death world, not just for the extreme climate, but all the deadly animals whose sole purpose was to kill other animals, even if they had no intention of eating them. Even Earth herbivores were a source of mortal danger. Purg scanned the creature. His eyes widened in consternation.
"Rusty, you are mistaken. It is actually a cat. Oh no. It is carnivorous, and it has a documented 60% successful kill rate when hunting. Whoever sold you this animal was extremely untruthful. You must contain and expel this creature immediately."
Rusty reached up and took the creature from his hand. Rusty reached up and took the creature in his hands protectively. "Guys, relax, it's no big deal." No big deal was another human saying that may convey complete safety or imminent danger. "Kitten is what we call an offspring of cats. I know about their hunting. Humans use them for pest control, to hunt and kill unwanted rodents and insects. Don't worry, this little guy will earn his keep. Besides, look how cute he is." Purg marveled at the human psychological response. Humans found offspring of any life form, including dangerous ones, to be enjoyable. Purg waved the scanner at the cat.
How big will this offspring get? How big will this offspring get once fully mature? How long does it take to reach maturity?"
Rusty replied, "He's about 8 weeks old now. He should be able to..."
He should be fully grown in about 2 years. He should be fully grown in 2 years. Even if he's he's about 8 weeks old now. He should be he's about 8 weeks old now. He should be about he's about 8 weeks he's about 8 weeks old now. He should be about fully grown in 2 years. Even if he's a Maine Coon, he shouldn't get he shouldn't get too big. Rusty indicated the area around his knee, which was mid-thigh to Purg. Purg flustered for a moment, then regained his composure.
Very well, I do need to report this to the captain. The medical specialist should also examine it. It is being assigned as... It is being assigned as designation ECA-1.
Rusty spoke. Actually, I was going to call him Peanut Butter.
Rusty spoke.
Actually, I was going to name him Peanut Butter.
Of course, peanuts were toxic to several humans, but humans would eat them safely, relish them in variety. Of course, peanuts were toxic to several humans, but humans who could eat them safely. Of course, peanuts were toxic to several humans, but humans who could eat them safely. Of course, peanuts were toxic to several humans, but humans who could eat them safely relish them in a variety of foods. In a human brain, it would make complete sense to name a carnivorous animal after a potentially deadly food. Very well, its designation has been changed to peanut butter. What sort of equipment is required to contain this animal safely?
Rusty laughed. Chill out. I'll find him something to eat in the mess hall, then a litter box. As far as contain it, good luck with that. It's a cat. Don't worry, everything will be fine.
Purg tried to hide his overwhelming panic. Don't worry, everything will be fine was the most not hazardous / life-threatening statement a human could make. The only thing a human could say that involved a higher threat level was, oops. I need to report this to the captain and medical specialists immediately. Please ensure that it doesn't kill crew members.
Rusty laughed. No promises.
Purg scurried off with the frightened security squad, while protocol dictated that the security squad would usually stay and monitor the potential threat. While protocol dictated that the security squad would usually stay to monitor the potential threat, there would be very little, if anything, they could do about the human. While protocol dictated that the security squad would usually stay to monitor the potential threat, there would be very little, if anything, they could do that the human could not in regards. There would be very little, if anything, they could do that the human could not in regards to the animal. Indeed, leaving the security squad to monitor the animal probably would not result in a greater ship safety, but avoidable injuries for the security squad. Purg was not looking forward to meeting with the captain to explain the human's newest hazardous behavior. The human was a very lucrative crew member, if one didn't mind spending their existence in constant mortal danger. End of story.
Finish off my coffee. Greetings, Boop. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated, and I'm glad you're enjoying the content. And thank you for the nice words. Very much appreciated. Ooh, stretch. Alrighty. That is everything done for the day. That is 15,000 words. That is 3 hours of stream. We are ahead. So I think I'm going to call it. Thank you all for spending your time with me. It is very much appreciated, especially in this modern age where everyone's attention is pulled in every which way. Spending hours with me is always appreciated. I will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And as always, I hope that you have a fantastic evening, or afternoon, or morning, whatever may be. Cheers.